Salutations, Utopians. Hope all is well. So yesterday we had our first game of the NBA season. It was a doubleheader. Celtics did their championship banner ceremony against the New York Knicks and then proceeded to throttle them. And then also the Los Angeles Lakers defeat the Minnesota Timberwolves, the revamped Minnesota Timberwolves, who happened to do a blockbuster trade with the New York Knicks, who were the undercard for that game yesterday. Shout out to LeBron and Bronny uh, for that record moment. Father-son duo, unbelievable. Speaking of generational inheritance, we had a max contract deadline just passed, and certain players got re-upped. Orlando and Houston, notably, were the most active. Um, Jalen Green, I'm sorry, Jalen Suggs and Jalen Suggs getting re-upped was follows the theme with Orlando in terms of them. Let's start with the Magic. You know, Jalen Suggs re-upping with the Magic for 150. As you all know, I think he was a top 2 pick of his draft in 20. Don't forget they also re-signed Mo Wagner to 200 M's and Jonathan Isaac. I'm a fan of Isaac, but as far as Wagner and Suggs, these are the way the Magic are spending money. They act like they were one player away, and I just, they benefited from a lot of things last year that had nothing to do with them. And I feel like all their moves are falling into my running theory that Pablo's going to end up leaving the Magic because you're limiting your flexibility. Look at what Minnesota's doing. They get off of Carl Towns' $60 million a year contract, and they go get guys like Randall, whose deals are winding down, and DiVincenzo, who's on a modest deal, even when money was being handed around, and liquidating that team and fleecing the Knicks the way they did. That's what a championship team does. A team with championship aspirations and a franchise cornerstone piece, which is who Pablo is. Pablo is a franchise guy. He led them in 4 or 5 different categories last year. Definitely is a rising star. And to me, it was just kind of crazy this offseason running down the hill, spending $60 million on Caldwell Pope, who's a spot-up shooter and a scrappy defender. Don't get me wrong, Orlando's going to play some great defense, and defense wins championships, but offenses win regular season games, and they don't have that kind of firepower that you need in order to complement each other. And it's just very bizarre because I don't know how much better Suggs is really from Markelle Fultz, who currently is no chance of returning back to the NBA as currently projected, not getting any calls up, and hasn't played any summer league, not seeing any workout videos nor any podcast interviews. So to me, it's like I don't really know what the heck the Magic are doing. This is just re-signing a bunch of guys who are just a bunch of guys, with the exception of Jonathan Isaac. I don't really like this offseason. As I told you, you look at Pablo's social media, he's always hanging around a bunch of Duke people. JJ is a former Duke alum. I think that when LeBron retires, they're going to be very hungry to find that next major piece. And they have a penchant for digging into Orlando Magic's rosters and pulling franchise cornerstone pieces, case in point, Shaq and Dwight. So I just don't really quite understand what Orlando's doing. They needed a far more greater splash, i.e. a Zach LaVine, i.e. let me poach Billy Donovan off the Bulls. That's the kind of moves you need to be making right now. Getting a more flashier name at head coach, getting a more perennial scorer on the perimeter, at least show good faith. But to waste money on a guy like Caldwell Pope, you're not a Caldwell Pope away. Now, a guy who shared the same draft class and was drafted second to Pablo Banchero, who the Magic passed on, which was a good decision, but still very talented. The Houston Rockets, as you all know, they signed Sengun and Jalen Green. Jalen Green, a lot of people are having backlash. Oh, by the way, I mean, when I say 1 and 2, Jabari Smith went to the Rockets. Pablo, which was a great decision by the Magic. Pablo can create his own shot. Jabari Smith needs to be initiated. I think he's a great compliment to Sengun, who did get that 185. Wasn't the super max completely, but he has shown signs that he is a Jokic breed. He's in that lineage of capable passing big man who can shoot, point centers, post up game, selfless, kind of guy you want to build your franchise around, showing steady progress, seems to be taking his diet serious, even though he did have a serious injury to end the year, which probably knocked off a couple M's for him. It still was a great deal for both parties. Sengun, to have no questions or doubts about. Jalen Green got 105 million. He was drafted in the 2021 draft class, and you know, sorry, let's go back to Sengun. He's one of six players who averaged 21, 9, and 5. He was in that same draft with Trey and Luca. So, and he's one of the rare players with a player option with a 5-year deal. Player option key. So that lets you know what the Rockets think of Sengun. Jalen Green's got 106 million. He's from the 2021 class, and some of the people. Cade Cunningham was drafted first. He got 224 mil. Evan Mobley was another 224 mil, coincidentally, and Scotty Barnes another 224. Evan Mobley was a 204. Excuse me, and then you got Wagner, who's at 224. Wagner was an 8th pick. Jalen Green, I believe, was a 2nd or 3rd pick. At the end of the day, it goes with my running theory, the same thing I said with respect to DiVincenzo. Shooting guards grow on trees, and you can afford to lose a 2 guard. There's a million guys running around 6'6" who can score from 3 levels. And so for him to get even that much, especially when he's been streaky, hasn't really shown to be a impact player in terms of willing a team into the playoffs. I think Cam Whitmore has more impact on the court, even though he's a small forward. The theme is front court players are more valued, and they're the ones that actually push around, give or take north or south of 200 M's, not 2 guards. 2 guards, there's always someone who can take your spot. Skilled small forwards, power forwards, centers, those are the guys who get 200 M's, or very dominant point guards, i.e. Ja Morant. You got to be a top 5 guy to get in that discussion at 2 guard, and he just quite frankly isn't one of them. So I don't see any outrage. He's not the craziest of crazy people. Now there were some big time surprises. Actually, let's scratch that. Let's go to Jalen Johnson, 150 million. I'm very huge on Jalen. I really think he's a great player. Very skilled, very athletic, plays a very entertaining brand of basketball. See, everybody's not going to win a chip, but I'll tell you, it's the Vince Carter effect. When Vince Carter used to play, nobody by the time the game was over would go, I wonder who won. Nobody's thinking about who won the game. They're like, did you see that Vince play? That's the kind of guy Jalen Johnson is. And he happens to be playing with the guy who the last 2 years has been top 2, top 3 in assists, and Trae Young. So, they moved off John Collins. I wish we could have seen them together, even though their skills kind of offset. Talent doesn't just run around like that in this league, especially with the friendly deal that John Collins is on. And he's a name who I'm extremely, extremely foaming at the mouth to see what happens to, because it's just so he's so talented for a guy who's just getting, not that, I don't think him and Trey were a good match. Then he goes to Utah. He's playing third fiddle. You're not moving around marketing, and he doesn't have a small forward skill set. Trey was launching 35 footers, didn't complement Collins' game well. A lot of long rebounds, a lot of just, and Trey is not the best of spot up shooters. But Jalen Johnson, they committed to him. They moved off of Collins, and I think it was a great investment. He has missed some time due to injury, but you can live with that. They have a nice foundation. I never really was a big fan of Dejounte Murray being in Atlanta, but with Hunter, I could understand they thinking maybe we're going to lock up the perimeter. I don't think Murray's a point guard, but he needs to have the ball every possession in his hand to be his most effective, and so that was a good trade. Kudos to Landry Fields. He's making lemons out of lemonade. He's making miracles happen. Dyson Daniels. The Hawks have a promising future. I like Reese Shea a lot. He's another very entertaining player. Has a lot of flash and flair to him. The Hawks are going to be interesting, even if they don't get close to sniffing a championship, and that's all you can ask for as a fan on a Friday night, Tuesday night. Need something to do. Let me go watch an entertaining brand of basketball with the Hawks. Who cares about winning championships? Just play a respectable brand of ball, and that's what the Hawks are building. Um, and never forget, Trae Young as the Alpha One has made it to an Eastern Conference Finals, so that's something to be said. Now, couple surprise guys. Trey Murphy's 112 million, while you have Brandon Ingram pending. I've said that I thought Ingram would have been a Piston by now. Trey John Langdon was in the front office with the Pelicans. He went over to Detroit as the lead GM. They are loaded with talent, but if Cade is the priority, who I alluded to earlier, has been extended for 224 million last summer, I think there was, then your job is to get him enough floor spacing. Perhaps a Jaden Ivey deal to Detroit will eventually, come about. But then that's kind of off the table now that Murray's there. So I really don't know the mystery, the big mystery in the NBA. The first mystery, I said John Collins is an interesting one. Brandon Ingram is box office. It's a movie to figure out, game of clues, so to speak, where he's going, because I don't think anyone has a clue at this point. There's been some suggestions of Portland, and but a guy who he doesn't want to accept his role as under a $200 million player. He's also a guy who's featured in an offense, but he's come up short in the playoffs. To his credit, Zion has missed a lot of time. He's out there trying to get it on his own. That's not the best scenario for him. He needs to be a second or third option to be best utilized. So the Trey Murphy extension definitely reveals Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, as they should. It should be the priority. And when you pair that with Murray, their lottery, their prize draft pick, Messi, at center, who's a very athletic wing, rangy wing, and then you got Zion. You got yourself a real lockdown defense. I really like the fact that Alvarado's coming off the bench. Unbelievable value. CJ McCollum's contract is a big problem. It's an albatross of an issue. He's ahead of the Players Union. I'm not at this stage in his career. There's players who can do what he can do at a fraction of the cost. I'd rather have Eric Gordon than have CJ McCollum at this point. For the money that he costs is just ridiculous. The next in line that I will have to say, switching gears, surprised a little bit, Moses Moody. He was picked from the previous administration, not Mike Dunleavy's draft choice, was picked relatively high. They passed. There was a draft where, there were some players on the table that they could have drafted. I think he was a lottery selection. Even though he's been put on the bench frequently by Steve Kerr, he's still got a $39 million deal for 3 years, Clutch Sports. I think he's going to have a great, promising season. I really don't understand what's going on over there in Golden State. Wiggins has missed the last 2 years, and somehow they still don't give him minutes. It's on some weird Tatum kind of situation. It said a lot to me that they signed him over Kuminga. Kuminga's a little more complicated. Let's not try to water that down. But still, to me, it's absolutely wild that a guy who didn't get any minutes is getting that 3-year extension. Meanwhile, Kuminga, and I'll quote Rashad McCants on Gil's Arena. He's also the guy who made a great take about JJ Redick. Don't be surprised if the Warriors get in that Jimmy Butler sweepstake. They're perfect for each other. Kuminga wants 200 mil. He's not going to get that anywhere. But if you go to Miami, you got the no state tax, so it kind of makes up the differential. On the other end, you have a guy in Jimmy Butler. He wants to be in California. He wants to have security, long-term security. It's not really about money. It's about winning. Draymond, Jimmy Butler, Steph, that's a nice kind of nucleus. Buddy Hield. It's not groundbreaking, but, it's respectable. They're going to fight. They're going to battle. And they're all kind of in the similar mindset. And you can send Curry off with a respectable send-off, because honestly, he's going to get exposed at this rate if they don't do something with that roster. Kuminga, the problem with Kuminga, he's not understanding that to garner 200 M's, you'd have, you want to be. Pascal Siakam got 185, and he was a bona fide second option on a championship team. OG Anunoby got 200 million because of connections. Kuminga is not any of those things. He's not a playmaker. He's not an anchor on defense, though he can guard multiple positions. But you have to do something more. He's trying to prove he's an ISO scorer, and he's just not an ISO guy. It's not about that. Yeah, you could go get a bucket. He wants to prove to everyone he's on his T-Mac, and it's like less T-Mac and more LeBron, basically. We need you to be a point forward. We need you to be able to get a bucket, but also see a play develop before it happens. And I just don't think he knows ball like that to command a 200M salary. And he's not Jason Tatum. He's not Jaylen Brown, because he's not enough to win you a championship. He's not really even enough to avoid a lottery campaign if he's the first option on a team. So if Curry goes down, I don't see him as a guy who can weather the storm for them. He'll put up tremendous numbers, but it'll look like Tyrese Maxey without Joel Embiid last year. It's going to be a lot of losing. And then moving on, last but not least, to the ultimate glue guy, a champion, and just a player I have a tremendous amount of respect for, because just the way the command that he took over his career and the wise choice. Did he ever prove me wrong with respect to the Denver Nuggets championship window after losing Jeremy Grant? Aaron Gordon gets a $133 million extension. That to me is far more important than Jamal Murray. Scoring two combo guards is cool, but Aaron Gordon, guys who know how to fill the blanks, knows how to gel, know how to get in where you fit in, so to speak, that Tayshaun Prince on the '04 Pistons kind of guy, you don't find those every day. He can guard multiple positions. He's improved his spot up shooting. It's priceless, that type of production. And I gotta tell you, man, the Nuggets are lucky to have him. He complements that front line so well next to Jokic, because he has traditional power forward size, but he plays a modern day hybrid game. Remember, this is the guy who was in the dunk contest. So good for the Nuggets for getting that done. I think the Nuggets have a problem at point guard, but at least they don't have a problem at power forward. Russ still has main character syndrome, and Jamal Murray looks a step too slow, and he just doesn't have that life in him that I need to see. But at least the Nuggets got the big elephant in the room addressed with Aaron Gordon. All right, Utopians, I'll try to do better next time. That's my recap on the contract extensions. Global out.